There has been a growing interest on YouTube in the post-Soviet nations and specifically the Baltic States due to the ongoing war and general political situation. However, most of the videos are made from the outside perspective and usually focus on the political or socio-economical aspects, basically focusing on the objective. In this video, I will try to delve into the post-Soviet collective unconscious, or in simpler terms, the mentality of the Baltic states through the subjective lens of a lifelong citizen. It is my hope to provide more insight into the worldview of these small yet significant nations that perhaps you're less familiar with. Outlining something as complex as the collective unconscious of a nation is an ambitious task. Notwithstanding the fact that the objective existence of such a category of analysis is debated. As much definition as can be accomplished in such a quest, it will still inescapably be a low-resolution abstraction. Some people have a dislike for such averages, even more so for ones of subjective understanding. However, broadness exists whether one likes it or not. An individual participates in and is part of larger ecosystems: couple, family, work or school community, city, nation, earth, and cosmos. In this case, a nation is a valid and existing level of abstract analysis even though individuals make it up. The insistence of sticking to analysis of individuals is only natural in the Western context because it is a fundamental presupposition of this culture stemming from Christianity. A person is made in the image of God, which means that every individual possesses transcendent value. With all of that said, abstraction of the highest magnitudes I am capable of always interested me more than objectivity and concreteness. This channel is about the exploration of ideas through a subjective lens, and this video is no different. Before we delve in, it is crucial to define what is meant by the term collective unconscious. Carl Jung defined it as follows. The collective unconscious is a part of the psyche which can be negatively distinguished from the personal unconscious by the fact that it does not, like the latter, owe its existence to personal experience and consequently is not a personal acquisition. While the personal unconscious is made up essentially of contents which have at one time been conscious but which have disappeared from consciousness through having been forgotten or repressed, the contents of the collective unconscious have never been in consciousness and therefore have never been individually acquired, but owe their existence exclusively to heredity. In essence, the collective unconscious is that part of the psyche which has not been, at least consciously, acquired and yet exists in you. Perhaps, in fairness to the Jungians, it is best to define the collective unconscious in the context of this video as an average sum of unconscious that exists more or less in all participating individuals of a nation. The term mentality does not fit because it more so implies the present attitude of the people, whereas I am interested in the possible ancestral effects on today. Also, I cannot calculate to what degree conscious knowledge of history adds to the effects I will describe in this video. Thus, it is necessary to expand Jung's original definition of collective unconscious and use it more loosely. The Lithuanian people in general have a unique collective sense of order. This sensitivity to order and cleanliness manifests itself in the aesthetic realm via our sense of beauty through simplicity. It only takes one to visit any of the random mid-sized towns to witness this trait. Lithuania was never rich, and so you will not see architecture rivaling nations like the Netherlands, but what you will find is order. As a rule, the towns will be modest, with a mix of 1- or 2-story houses, some wooden, and gray Soviet blocks, some renovated. However, what you will find within that modesty is harmony and peacefulness. you will find a well-integrated nature, whether through the cleaned-up parks or the maintained personal gardens. It only takes one to take a drive through the miserable towns of Poland to comprehend the contrast. Obviously, the size of a country is proportionate to the amount of order that can be established, although the on-the-road towns of even smaller Latvia pale in comparison. Another interesting aspect which I believe was key to our inextinguishable flame of independence is the Lithuanian scrupulous view of politics. However, Lithuanian approach to freedom is not fiery and extroverted like the French. Rather, it is resilient, resolute, and determined. The Lithuanian collective unconscious has endured many imaginable repressions, even ones of vital importance, ban of language or faith. This identification with the earth element was surely born out of the deep roots to nature and then agriculture. One can easily find this identification in studying Lithuanian philology. Yet it also served as an existential, cultural defense to a small land surrounded by empires. The Baltic states in general had no chance of survival unless they embodied earth. Whatever mortal imperialist conglomerate planted their flag on our land will eventually die and rot. The soil, along with the potential of harvest, will remain for millennia. Regarding today, the Baltics
are surely reaping their long-due harvest. The post-Soviet generation, born after 1990, is one of optimism and prosperity.
This generation possesses the breadth of vision and the righteous necessity of freedom that is hardly understandable to the repressed Soviet generation.
Kids today are born with a fundamental right to freedom, which in itself stands as a monument to the victory of democracy.
The aspect to which one attributes this progress is not of importance. The result speaks for itself. The Baltic states are experiencing an economic boom along with a functioning democracy. All three of the Baltic states rank in the top 15 of the World Press Freedom Index. One of the more recent notable accolades is Lithuania's placement as #1 in the World Happiness Report of people under 30. Although some have reasonable cynicism and critique towards such subjective statistical rankings, in my eyes, it is nevertheless an affirmation of the growing optimism amongst the post-Soviet generation. Given the Baltics' incredibly successful yet extremely fragile strive of expanding the garden, a biblical metaphor describing the humanity's quest for perfection, it is of foremost importance to note the lingering threat of Russia that has perforated at least the Lithuanian collective unconscious, although I believe we are not the only ones affected in this way. The proximity to such an intentionally unpredictable existential threat and furthermore polar opposite in terms of moral position is a crucial circumstance. I have a video scratching the surface of Russia's problem if you are interested. However, I would argue that it is more so the ancestral tie through the unconscious that is driving the nation's sensitivity. When a post-Soviet nation sees the situation in Ukraine, they not only hear the cries of Ukrainians, but also the screams of our tortured ancestors. We justifiably project onto the situation our current fragility along with the rarely matched trauma of the past. The Baltic states must not allow history to repeat itself. We are a people of freedom and goodwill. Yet little is in our control, for the world stage has not changed in a way to allow the Baltic states, prosperous as they are, a significant role, not in any true way of power. I have little reason for alarm of being trampled, yet if that nightmarish day were to manifest, the arrogant but peaceful nation of Lithuania, along with the rest of the Baltics, will identify with the earth as strongly as ever and shall outlive any regime. In the meantime, we will tend to our garden and prosper. I believe it is important to shine light on this because this worldview is foreign to an American or even to a German. The mentality of an individual who is a part of a small and geographically vulnerable nation is foreign to an American or any other citizen of a powerful country. Someone living in Los Angeles does not have a constant existential splinter in the back of their minds in the form of a possible unwinnable war that will demolish all that you worked for. For me, this is a crucial video, and I hope I was able to provide at least a glimpse or outline into the post-Soviet collective unconscious of the Baltic states. As is obvious, at times I failed to separate myself from the object of discussion. However, I believe that can only add to my quest of painting you the picture from within. Each nation possesses a unique worldview or mentality that was inescapably shaped by its history. I encourage you to share yours.